Hello and welcome. We, first of all, public service announcement. Sorry, we are later than scheduled. Even though he's not here tonight, it is genuinely all Joe's fault. Because this is what happens when you leave a man in charge of things like this. No, kidding. Yeah, there was just some technical issues and we couldn't get on the stream. And yeah, mild panic setting in, but we are here and it was none of us that caused the delay before. I've seen some comments. Danny Talks Leeds, just looking over at you. I have not been stuck in hair and makeup. I would have done a considerably better job had I have been stuck in hair and makeup. So yes, let's now we've got the panic over and the public service apology out of the way. Danny, how are you this week?
Yeah, I'm good. Feeling more positive this week, obviously, after the weekend. So I'm good. And I hope you're feeling better because I know you were feeling quite negative last week.
Yeah, it's amazing what a win against a really poor opposition will do for you. Lucy, it's nice to have you back. We missed you last week. How have you been?
I've been okay. I've been recovering from a bit of a sickness bug. So it's good to be back, and it made me smile that we got the results, so it's all good.
Absolutely. Last week I was a little bit negative, a little bit pessimistic, which I don't like being. But 3 points and being 6 points clear of the relegation zone, it's amazing what that does for one's mental outlook and also just in general mental health. Because when Leeds lose, so does my mental health, and it is really embarrassing as a grown-ass woman who has given birth that my happiness depends so heavily on Leeds United. Lucy, because you weren't here last week, how were you feeling going into last week's game?
So obviously we lost against Burnley. Not to bring it up again, sorry guys. So for me it was right, we're at Elland Road. This is a must-win now. We need to pull this out of the bag now, no matter whether it's going to go off somebody's ankle or whatever. We need to just get the 3 points here.
Absolutely. It didn't have to be pretty or anything like that. It just needed to be 3 points, especially at Elland Road. There's only been the said Burnley and Tottenham who have managed to get all 3 points at Elland Road over the last year. I know obviously different league, different different type of caliber of team, but it still doesn't change the fact that Elland Road has once again become a fortress, and long may that continue. Doesn't mean we have to win it doesn't even mean that we have to win. It just means that we have to perform. And obviously we do have to get some points somewhere because relegation and all that. I think that steers us on to quite happily and easily onto Gabby Logan's comments, because apparently we don't need to worry about relegation. It is done. We are safe from the drop, because Gabby Logan says that in the last 10 years, teams who have got 11 points after 10 games have not faced the drop. Obviously, we've got 11 points after 9 games. So does this put us on track for Europe, do you reckon, Danny?
No. And I also don't partake in any kind of thing that taps into my superstition, especially not after the last season when we did go down. And I think no team ever had gone down after however many games and that many points. But what I will say is I do think we're looking steady. It doesn't look like a burst where we've had 3 great games and then we've dropped off or anything like that, like it did last time.
Yeah.
Even though we've had a few bad performances, or I think you can argue between first half and second half, even at the weekend, I do think that we are remaining somewhat steady and just picking up those points. So I don't want to feed into positivity. This will carry on. We're definitely going to do it. that's too risky for me. I'll blame myself forever if that goes wrong.
That's such a Leeds thing to say. Like, I don't want to feed into positivity. We are so damaged as a fan base that we can't possibly feed into positivity.
Just can't do it. Just can't do it. But I'm not sat like I must admit after the Burnley game, I was thinking, oh my God, if we can't pick up anything against Burnley, this doesn't look good. I didn't quite say out loud, it results one way, but I was thinking this isn't good. This might be a dull season if this kind of form then takes hold. But after that win, even though West Ham are not looking great, a win's a win.
Yeah.
It's another, as I say every week, point a game, another 3 points picked up and ticked off. So it's on the right track, and I'm feeling very happy about the result and positive-ish.
Oh, we got the slight positive. Lucy, how did Gabby Logan's comments affect you? Do you think that, it's okay to have a look at things, or do you think, well, this is Leeds United, and if there is a team that could buck a trend, enter the Peacocks?
Yeah, I thought, as soon as I saw it, I just thought that's just Leeds. That's got Leeds written all over it. I don't want to be too sort of pessimistic. I think I would have been if you'd have had me on after the Burnley game. I think I would have been. But I think I'm not too worried. I think we will stay up, but I'm not saying that with too much confidence until it's mathematically impossible for us to go down.
Yeah, I mean, I've done some mathematical expertise this week, and if we continue on our trajectory that we're currently on, we'd be comfortably on 46 points, which that's a comfortable mid-table finish. And depending on the teams in and around us, that might be high mid-table as well, because there's a lot of teams. Fulham, for me, are going under the radar in terms of that they are in trouble. If Burnley are in trouble, if we're in trouble, if Everton are in trouble, Fulham have only got eight points. So it's something, and that 3 of those points came from us from a deflected own goal. So there's a lot of other teams that, I mean, I'm not bothered about Burnley, but it would be nice to see us and Sunderland stay up. And, obviously I'm always going to vote for Leeds first, but it would just be nice if us, Sunderland, stay up, and for me, Middlesbrough and Hull to come up, because that just gives so much more northern teams that, people might be able to go to away games without having to shell out an absolute fortune on travel. But that's just a little side note. Let's start with the feeling going into the game when the game actually kicked off. I don't know about you, Lucy, but were you at the game on Friday night? Yeah. What was the atmosphere in the ground like? Because I was so anxious, but it sounded like an amazing atmosphere.
Do you know what? It was electric, honestly. Like, from when they came out to warm up, it was just electric. And I know that Nuno did comment on the game afterwards and say, like, I've managed into some like hostile places, but that sort of tops it all. And I think you could feel that it was like sort of all of us against West Ham, not just the players on the field. It was the whole crowd as well.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. I don't like, for me, that's what football is. It's tribalism. It's kind of having this sense of unity. It's something that brings you together if in other worlds you might not be friends with one another, and this kind of common ground and the feeling that everybody hates us and, we're hard done by and we deserve to be here and we're going to fight you no matter which way you come at us. I mean, luckily, West Ham didn't really enter the pitch until the second half, and that was only when we allowed it anyway. But I think that the players, the crowd, it becomes cliche, don't you think, Danny, that sometimes Elland Road, the atmosphere and everything, but I really felt that from what I witnessed as a sofa fan, that the crowd really stepped up and really did become that 12th man. There's a particular bit that plays in my mind where West Ham had a corner in the second half, and the fans just in that corner were like constantly shouting at the referee saying it wasn't on the line. It was so like, but I just loved it. I loved the kind of childish and just really, we're going to mess with you in any which way so that we can get our team to, the 90th minute.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that when we feel we've got something to fight for, the Elland Road sort of, I suppose, story is true. We are very tribal, like you said, to use the word, but also we're loyal. And we've stuck, the fans that are still in that stadium, and probably the first 10,000 people on the waiting list, are the fans that truly have supported this team through everything. And probably more than that, probably 15,000, 20,000. I'm sure we're all real fans. But what I mean is we've got something special that a lot of teams don't have. I think it's part of all those years that we spent down. We're still like a early 2090s fan base in a little capsule, because we still have our ground and our team, and we're all local. And yeah, okay, some people gave up season tickets through protest and different things like that. But I think we're a really special fan base, and I don't think there are many that are like us. And the ones that are have given up their stadiums. And I think that's what makes us so special. And I can imagine that when we're not playing well and teams come and dominate us like we have seen last time we were up at times, it's probably funny. I mean, Jack Grealish described it as, he thought we were funny and things. And obviously that to us it's almost offensive. But the truth is it probably was, because I knew we weren't going to do anything because we weren't looking great. But when we are actually performing well, or at least we're competitive, probably is quite... It's probably an unusual thing to experience outside of certain European teams.
Yeah.
Maybe if you get certain Polish teams or Croatian teams or whatever, you'll feel a similar thing. But within England, I think it's quite rare.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually, of we're a dying breed, not only as a fan base, but as a ground, as a club, as kind of the ethos and the history behind us. And it was nice to see West Ham fans joining in with the chants of, you've sold your soul for that whole of a new ground and things. And there's quite a few, obviously you can't get atmosphere at the London Stadium. It's just, it's not designed for football. And I think that's one of the things that we have to be so careful of, is that the expansion is done with us in mind and with the atmosphere.
I don't know if any of you went to the old West Ham ground and know the area, but that is the people. That is East London. I don't know. Yeah. It lost, but you get that across London now, with Tottenham as well. It lost its community that we still have.
Yeah.
And that's not any, of course, I want them to go down because I want us to stay up. But really, it's sad for those fan base. They're fans like us, and the management and the owners felt it was better to sell their souls for money than preserve their team, and their atmosphere and their fans. And like you said, us expanding that ground, I just hope they don't do the same to us, because we're a special club.
We are a special club. Let's get back on to talking about our special club and the way that we scored within the first 3 minutes, and the fact that not only did that feed off of the electricity that was being kind of pumped in and around the ground, and you could feel it through the telly, but Okafor, in my opinion, makes such a difference. We are an electric team when we've got Okafor in the side. Lucy, how hard does Okafor work to exploit that left-hand side?
Incredibly hard. Like, he worked up to full fitness. He could only do 50, 60 minutes. And even in them 50, 60 minutes, it was like, wow, if we do not start you, we are a completely different side. He just brings the creativity, the flair. And there was a few balls where he sort of couldn't get to, sort of thing. But I think that's just a case of match sharpness.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can obviously, Aronson has taken a lot of flack basically his entire second journey at Leeds United, and it has obviously continued into the Premier League. But he was in the right place, right time. None of it happens without Okafor. None of it happens. You know, I feel bad for Bogle because obviously if Okafor gets the first goal, Bogle gets an assist for it. Also, he was on my FPL, so I really wanted him to get an assist. But Okafor just isn't afraid to put in the shots. He really works down that left-hand side. And Aronson, lucky or right place, Danny?
Right place. I, unlike Joe, I'm a little bit of a critic, I'll be honest. But I think he's worked his socks off. For us, actually, since he came back, but at times it's just not paid off and you felt frustrated with him. But I think he's worked his socks off, and his game at the weekend against West Ham is the most I've been impressed with him since he was under Jesse Marsh for that very short span where things were good. And I want to give him credit because I don't want to just put it down to luck when he's had a few good performances now where it looks like he's probably been working his socks off behind closed doors to try and do the right thing.
Yeah, I think we have to show him some respect when he does things without Aronson's kind of niggly behavior. We don't win all the free kicks. He's defensively, he's brilliant in terms of he just keeps on going. He often struggles with what to do once he's got the ball, but we don't regain possession as much without him. Granted, he does lose the ball a fair bit, but if he gets rid of the ball as quick as he's got it, he's an absolute, you know, he really is something positive and something that we should, you know, embrace, because you kind of need the chaos. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of chaos, because when you control that in a certain way, which I think that Farke's man management is one of his best skills, and I think he's using the pros of Aronson to the benefit of the entire team. And I think that if he's not just this annoying, he's like a fly or a bee or something. You're just trying to swat him to get him away type of thing. I would hate to play against him because he's just relentless. Granted, he doesn't always have the execution to come out of it, but he was in the right place because that's what he's there to do. And
I was going to say that dribbling through the middle as well. It was the first time I've seen in a long time the Medford-Messi thing.
Messi.
Okay, it didn't go in the back of the net, but we must admit it wasn't far off.
No, without the deflection, it probably does go in. So, you know, or at least makes the keeper make a save. So if his confidence grows and his, I don't want to say this without sounding really cruel, but sometimes when he overthinks, if he just plays on instinct, I think he's a better player than when he's got the time to think. I can see you're nodding, Lucy. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel like he just gets to a certain point sometimes and it's like, what do I do now, sort of thing. And you're like, just pass the ball. And it's like, it's just like that second behind sort of thing.
It's like really random. Pheasants see a little bit slower than we do. So, you know, when you're driving your car and you're screaming at a pheasant to get out of the way because you're about to hit it, that's what Aronson reminds me of, a pheasant, that he's just seeing things a split second later than the rest of us. And we're all there screaming and shouting at him. I'm there screaming at the top of my lungs, you know, hoping that he can hear me somehow through the telly. But he is relentless, and I do think that we have to give him props, and I do think that we lose something when he comes off the pitch. Granted, we're getting Dan James back, and you know, he is also very good defensively, and I'm looking forward to seeing more and more of Dan James, because as well, it would be nice to be able to start Dan James and bring Aronson on to defend, because I do think that out of the wingers, he is probably our best defensive-minded winger. And he also gets you up the pitch, which is something that Jack Harrison doesn't really do. I want to just quickly touch on Somerville, because last week I mentioned a lot in like chats and things, that I was anxious that our past would come back to bite us on the backside. And in my opinion, Bogle and Aronson both did a superb job of shutting him the hell up. Danny, do you think that Somerville looked like he'd almost let the occasion got to him a little?
Yeah, I think it mattered to him. I felt that was quite obvious that he wanted to prove something coming back to the ground. However, I wasn't so worried, because he is quite a predictable player. I'm not saying he's stoppable, but he's a predictable player, and he played for us for, obviously had that fabulous season with us. So Daniel Farker and some of the team were going to be well aware of how to deal with him.
Yeah.
So I felt that just by, showing him down the flank and not letting him cut in, that rolls out one of his little tricks straight away. So I wasn't too worried, because we're at a different level now. This isn't the Championship where you think, well, he's going to be able to do it anyway, even if we know he's going to do it. And I thought he was marked out of the game, and I think he was probably thoroughly peeved off, but he still looked like one of their better players, even though he didn't come 100%. Out with anything. They were absolutely atrocious. So, maybe he could come home when they go down at the end of the season, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'd be all right with that. Lucy, were the boos as loud as they came across on the telly whenever Somerville got the ball? Because it came across really loud every time he was on the ball. Yeah.
See, I found it to be just sort of a section of fans, that sort of the same ones that boo people regularly, sort of thing. I thought with Somerville, I'm sure like he's just fell out of Bogle's pocket, sort of thing. But he did sort of look around at the end, and you could just see him, and I think he was sort of thinking, "What have I done here?" sort of thing. For me, I would never boo him. I think he spent his time at ours. He's gone there, and look how it's worked out, sort of thing.
Yeah, these things happen. He never felt that didn't hurt as much as Rutter hurt, in my opinion, because Rutter felt like ours. Like that season, he felt like, I don't know, it felt like he went from being a boy to a man during that first season back in the Championship. And yes, we groaned when he lost the ball, but he felt like ours. Whereas Somerville, it was almost like there was Somerville ego and the fans. And as a very famous interview once said, there was 3 of us in this marriage. So that's a little bit too much for Leeds fans. So I think, yeah, go on.
No, please, you finish.
I was just going to say that I think that you're right. He did look like, his Instagram stories before the game, he was wearing both of the shirts. And actually, I like to read a bit more into things than they probably meant, but the Leeds shirt was bigger. Like he's had better moments wearing a Leeds shirt than he has wearing a West Ham shirt. So, and he knows the Elland Road atmosphere. He's had that moment where he's done something incredible and the fans have all gone wild. And it's not like it has experienced that at West Ham. It's been in turmoil for several seasons before he even joined. So that was it. You go ahead, Danny.
I was going to say, I can understand why some fans are frustrated with him, because was it Brentford he refused to go to? And we basically had to sell Archie I might have the wrong team, but some team offered to buy him. And we had to sell Archie to meet the sort of financial deadline. And how true everything is, we know what comes out is just drip fed and how accurate and whatever. But I can understand why some fans are annoyed. I don't feel much, but I didn't feel much with him leaving either. Like you said, Rutter.
It felt quite transactional. Like he played for us. We supported him whilst he was playing for us. I wish him well, but he also didn't stay and didn't experience Leeds when we got promoted, type of thing. So he missed out on an experience, really.
Exactly. It was that JUSTJOE thing as well, where he says he was playing for the name on the back and not the badge on the front. So even though he did a good job and you can handle it if someone does what they need for you, you don't get as attached.
Yeah. If you don't, literally bleed for Leeds, Rodon, Dan James, if you don't do something that really says, I'm going to do whatever it is to get those 3, points, as oh my God, Warnock would say, you have to die for those 3 points. And Somerville never really embraced that kind of very English football mentality of you do whatever you can for those points, whereas Rodon was on loan and he has constantly bled for Leeds. So yeah, I think I'm pleased that we showed him what it's like, and I'm pleased that we didn't roll over. I'm pleased that we didn't respect him too much either. And like you say, Danny, we didn't allow him that space, because we saw towards the end of that season where we missed out on promotion, if you marked Somerville out of the game, he produced very little else. Obviously within 15 minutes, we've just been talking about somebody who has bled for Leeds. Now he also seems to repeatedly score for Leeds. Joe Rodon with another Longstaff assist from a set piece. Are we good at set pieces now, by the way? Like,
I'm not saying that.
Well, we know that you wouldn't, Danny, because that involves being positive and things. I would hate to force you into an uncomfortable situation.
Imagine we don't score another set piece and I've said yes. That would clearly be my fault.
Joe can clip this up and then actually just blame it all on me. Lucy, I also saw you shushing me then. So we're not good at set pieces, but we scored from another set piece. Is Joe Rodon our biggest threat now from set pieces, having not scored basically ever in his career before he came to us?
Well, I think he scored one professional goal before he came to us, and now I think he's on something like 5 in 12 for club and country. So praise to the set piece coach, and long may it continue.
Absolutely. It was just what we needed at the time that we needed as well, because I always say, and my husband always has a go at me, so I always say, you're always weakest when you've just scored. And because obviously we scored in the 3rd minute, I didn't want us to back off. We'll talk about us backing off because, yeah, the stats look far more even than they should do because of that fact, in my opinion. But I think that I've just seen this. I'm going to have to put this up. White Swan says upgraded 50p to a £1 coin head. Absolutely. But I think that with Rodon now finding that kind of that groove and us being able to have a potential of having different types of corners. If you want Strout to score, you go kind of usually low to the feet, because he's scored a few headers, but he actually is better with his physicality and his feet than he is necessarily with his head. But this is another thing that we can be a threat from. We're not just having to, like we did in the Championship, basically walk into the net, because you're not going to get those opportunities in the Premier League. So, Danny, is Rodon now a bona fide goal threat after being such a defensive beast for 2 and a bit years? Is he now finally becoming a goal threat?
Yeah, I think he can be. I think all he needed was, and I'm assuming this is what it is, but it would seem like it, otherwise it's one hell of a coincidence that he scored a bunch of goals in short succession, was coaching, because he's great with his head in the defensive half. was some coaching on basically getting it towards a goal rather than just here, there and everywhere. And I think, I don't want to say he's a goal threat in case we get a click situation and it dries up all of a sudden, but I do think he's looking like it. And I don't think that's probably the end of his goals for the season. I think we might see another couple.
Just in case anybody missed it, that was Danny being positive, just in case.
I do feel somewhat positive, but yeah, I'm crazy superstitious.
I know. I think we all are. I think that's why we've all been drawn towards Leeds United, because if there is a club that is going to make you superstitious and going to make you think every single referee, game fixture change is against you and against Leeds, then it 100% is. Then Leeds United, please, welcomes you on in. I think that Rodon is slowly becoming the player that we can't do without, because he is so determined. He's a different type of leader. He's not like an Ampadu that shouts and screams at one another, although he does do a bit of that, but that's usually just at his own back line. I think that he is so Leeds, it makes my heart happy, because there have been very few players since Bielsa where I just think, you're Leeds. Like, you love this club and this club loves you. I would love it if he had a song as well, because I just love him. I think he's so understated, and I think until obviously every goal scorer gets the kind of the plaudits and everything, but he didn't give up a moments of hard work. Once we were 2-0 up, he got the most points. Obviously, I hate to bring this back round to FPL, but he got the most defensive points. He got the most points of any defender last week in the Premier League. And I saw some lucky so-and-so a triple captained him as well. So he ended up getting 39 points for Rodon. So it just goes to show that he's been with us. This is his third consecutive season. He understands FAC, he understands the responsibility. He was one of the ones that a lot of people were saying that maybe he doesn't make that step up. And for me, he seems to be, defensively wise, you could put Bogle in there as well, but especially in the defensive positions, Bogle's made the most seamless transition from the Championship to the Premier League. Lucy, what would happen if he got injured? Do we all go panic stations?
But if Bogle got injured?
No, if Rodon got injured.
I'd be worried if Rodon got injured. Yeah, I'd be really worried. I just think he lives, breathes Leeds. I think, obviously, we're his first, sort of long-term club sort of thing where he has had those minutes. So I think for him, he very much is like us as fans, where he wants to get them 3 points, and sort of, I think it goes sort of unmissed sometimes, his leadership qualities. So I think in terms of that, I think we miss him there as well. His first name on the sheet for me. Yeah, absolutely. Let's go into, the first half was obviously incredibly long. I don't think I've ever seen 13 minutes added on to a first half of football before. We had the West Ham disallowed goal. We had multiple injuries. We had one of their players, who was it that went off for them? And then Wilson came on to replace him. I can't remember. That's going to really annoy me. Let's have a look. Was it Scarles? Yeah. So, and then Wilson came on for him, and then we had obviously Gary Goodmanson as well go off, which was quite a little. It was a funny interchange between Ampadu and him, because Goodmanson clearly wanted to go off because he was clearly injured, and Ampadu was like, "No, sit down." But it meant that it limited our options for the second half. Obviously, Lucy, you mentioned that
Okafor was only really going to be able to play 55, 60 minutes. And because of the added time, he'd already played that in the first half alone. So it did mean that the dynamics changed somewhat in the second half. And Danny, how much do you think those were enforced changes, i.e. backing off? And how much do you think is Farke trying to protect a 2-goal lead?
Both. I think if he could have got 70, 80 minutes out of Okafor, he would have, and maybe then he'd have chosen differently in how we handled the second half. But I assume that he's well aware when we don't have Okafor on and we have to have Harrison on and certain other players, it completely changes. They don't have the creativity that Okafor has. They just don't. And I assume that that's why he went with Okafor first half rather than second half, was a go out and see if we can win it in a half.
Yeah.
And then we just defend. And if they pull back a goal, hopefully we've got enough that we can manage.
Yeah.
I think all of it was informed. I'm still not sure it was the right decision because Aronson was having a good game. And admittedly,
this I also think plays a big part in it, that Danny says, is that we were told afterwards that there was a lot of illness around the camp. So that may be man flu.
I assume that was on the pitch as well. And some players were not aware of, I assume, as well, by the fact how he worded it in the post-match. But I think it's a bit of both. And I just hope that when we have more options, that we don't see it as early as that. Is sort of my only comment on it. It was too early against a better team. That easily could have been 2-2 or even 3-2 if that had been a better team. So I just hope that it was very well informed and he knew what he was doing and made those decisions in line with watching West Ham and the level they're at the moment, rather than thinking that was the right thing to do generally.
Yeah, if you're 2-0 up against Man City, that's maybe not the choice to be doing it. Lucy, what was the reaction of Elland Road when you could tell that we were just soaking up pressure rather than applying much of our own?
It did go a little bit flat. I think everyone was a bit like, right, come on now, keep going, sort of thing. We never seemed to really, as such, put teams to the blade. So I thought after we scored the 2 goals, I'm thinking, keep going, sort of thing. Let's get to 4 and then I'll sort of be all right if we sit back the second half. But it's Leeds. We never do things easily, do we? When that goal went in, I'm thinking, please, will you just blow the whistle, ref, please?
Yeah. I was pacing outside of my living room so that I could only see the TV every kind of 5 seconds as I was going backwards and forwards, because I'm like, if there's a team that's going to screw up a 2-0 lead in the 90th minute, this is the team. I do think we need to be a little bit critical of Ampadu in terms of, for me, he lost his man. He gets quite... he loves barking orders at people and doesn't necessarily take the initiative and lead by example, which is something that, as discussed earlier, Rodon does. He leads by example. He puts his body on the line. I'm not saying that Ampadu doesn't. I'm just saying that sometimes if Ampadu maybe just did instead, then that doesn't happen, and it is frustrating when that happens, because Joe Rodon alone deserved a clean sheet. So he made so many interceptions and clearances that to protect Perry. Obviously, Perry, we haven't even spoken about him. He made some really good saves. The double save in the first half, where he saves it and pushes it away, and then I think it's Rodon, actually, obviously, of course it's Rodon, that gets and boots it clear. It was nice to see Farke, and maybe we should kind of, before we get on to the West Ham goal, talk about the fact that Farke made changes we've all been skeptical in the past of Farke picking his favourites, no matter what. But he did make changes. You know, he swapped Darlow for Perry. He swapped Struijk for Bijol. He swapped Stack for Tanaka. And obviously Okafor, because he could play some football, came back in. I think that Farke does need to be given some praise of making the changes that we were all screaming out for. And I know it's always the cliche, isn't it, that the players that you need are always the players that are on the bench type of thing. And what was Bijol like to see in person, Lucy? You know, because personally, I thought he did a pretty good job. I know there were some fouls, obviously, some free kicks that he gave away, but I thought, considering he's not played in the league before, and it was such an important game, this was a must-win game. What was he like?
I feel like he was solid. I don't have a criticism. I can't say that word, but a criticism about him. It was nice to see him on. I think he's just, like you wrote on, he's a no-nonsense sort of get the ball cleared defender, and I think sometimes that is what we need instead of doing all the tappy.
Absolutely. Danny, do you think it was the right choice to drop Struijk and to bring Bijol in?
I think so. And he proved himself. I mean, we were all worried after the Chef Wednesday game a little bit. And he came in and just proved that he can do a job when he's slotted in. So we know we've got options now. I
think the only person that gave a good account of himself in that game was Bogle. So I don't think we can really read much into that. So I am pleased for him and for us, because again, now we know we've got options. I kind of feel bad for, oh gosh, I can't pronounce his name.
Struijk.
No, the other defender, Bernhoff.
Bornau.
Yeah, because obviously, like, he's nowhere near the team. He's, he must have been poorly as well, because he didn't even make the bench on Friday. So
it was a waste of money.
Yeah,
he's crap. Sorry, I'm just gonna put it out. He's crap.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that. But a defensive signing that seems to now have already earned a little bit of the money that we were potentially frustrated because we didn't get a winger with the money that we spent on him. James Justin, obviously he came in for the last bit of the first half and the entire second half for Gabby Goodmanson. Again, that changes your attacking impetus because he's far more defensively minded than Goodmanson is. So I do think that maybe in this game, we can give Farke a little bit more leeway because he had so many attacking options taken away from him throughout the game. Obviously, like you said, Danny, if we're up against a better team, we can't just defend. But he didn't really have a great deal of options on the bench for him. But I thought he gave a really good account of himself. I thought he was solid. I didn't think he did anything stupid. It's nice to see players making the most of their appearances and as well giving the manager a headache rather than the team picks itself. I don't want the team to pick itself. I want every player out there to have to work for the shirt because it's a heavy shirt. And I don't think that anybody should be given a pass. And that includes Ampadu. I love Ampadu. Ampadu is one of my favourite players, just full stop. But I am also very critical of him because he does seem to get by a lot with Daniel Farke. And obviously he's said quite a few times that Ampadu is his most important player. Now, I think that that's quite a thing to have on your shoulders without allowing you to get big-headed. But who else came in? So we had Perry, he made some brilliant saves. We had Tanaka. Tanaka, what was everybody's thoughts? Danny, we'll start with you on Tanaka. Did he give a good appraisal of himself?
Yeah, I think so. I think he came in and did a really good job. And to be honest, I'm not overly a stats person, but just the win rate that we have with him in the squad says everything you need to know. Whether, he does have some games where he goes a bit unnoticed and some games where he makes the odd mistake, but it'll probably be for different games as to what we choose, because we've got quite a strong midfield now. But he's a great player, and I think he's a bit of a difference maker sometimes.
Yeah, I thought in the first half, especially, I thought him and Longstaff were brilliant in that first half. They really gave everything, and Tanaka was able to protect the ball. I've just seen somebody who's come in the chat who loves a good stat. We'll have none of those here. Although I do love a good
Statman Joe.
Statman Joe.
Statman Dave, it's Statman Joe.
But yeah, it was lovely to see Lucy. Tanaka seemed more Tanaka-like than he had done in his previous 2 appearances after his injury. Did he seem like Tanaka from last season, or did he still seem not deer in headlights, because maybe that's a bit offensive, but he just hasn't seemed to have looked comfortable necessarily since the opening game of the season?
Yeah, I feel like he looked a lot more settled. I did notice he got sort of out-muscled off the ball a few times, but I think that's just a case of him like adjusting to the physicality of the Premier League. And I think he has sort of come out and said that himself, that it's not good enough and I need to do a little bit better. But yeah,
he's so humble though, isn't he? He's so lovely. You can't help but like him. And even though I was very cross with him after the Bournemouth incident, because again, you can look at the points that we have. We at least should have 2 or 3 more for definite. And that is a game where we definitely dropped 2 points. Let's get on to the heart palpitations moment of the peppering finally went in, obviously courtesy of a cross ball from West Ham's, other goal threat, which is Jared Bowen, because he seems to have dragged that team for the last 2 seasons consecutively. He has really dragged West Ham to any form, really. He is a little bit Thanos-like. He's inevitable. And he, I've watched, obviously because we won, I've watched a lot of West Ham podcasts over the last week because, let's revel in other people's misery and all that. But it was Mateus Fernandez who scored, and so many West Ham fans were wanting him to start and have said that basically Nuno finished the game with the team that he should have started with. And obviously, with Nuno being relatively new, he's on his 4th game, I think, possibly. Maybe we've played them at a good time in terms of he doesn't know his team yet. Do you have, Lucy, a person or a situation that you think directly led to it, or was it just it was going to happen because we sat back?
I feel like it's very much sort of when the Gabby Goodmanson own goal went in against Fulham, and you sort of half expecting it. I mean, I said to my granddad in about the 60th minute, I was like, Granddad, we're going to concede at some point. And he's like, no, don't be negative. And I'm like, no, we're Leeds. We're going to concede. And it went in, and he went, you said, didn't you? And I was like, yeah. And we've got like another 5 minutes. So this is great.
Yeah, it's one thing if you concede an own goal in like the 60th minute. It's another thing when it's like the 85th or whatever it was by that point. I know it was even later than that, wasn't it? It was like the 89th. But yeah, it was nail-biting time at that point. I thought, are we going to do another Bournemouth situation where we drop major points, and against a team and this is no disrespect because of the fact that obviously they were in Europe a matter of a couple of seasons ago, and they've won a European trophy 3 seasons ago. So on paper, they should not be where they are right now, but they haven't been a good team for a season and a bit, probably.
Since Rice left, I think.
Yeah. I think that when you have such a talisman player and somebody who can just whip out a goal when it's needed, and you lose that, and then you spend the profit from that on players that just have not lived up to any form of price tag or expectation. But it really felt like we were holding on for dear life. Danny, were you watching it on the telly, or were you at the game as well?
No, I was watching it on the telly.
What were you doing? Because you're notoriously a superstitious person by your own.
Even though I think we played 4 or 5 minutes after the goal, I was thinking, oh, for God's sake. Because all I think about is that Bielsa game where was it? I think we did it twice. Was it Aston Villa and Blackburn, where we went into the 90th minute like 2-1 down and we won it 3-2, like 2 weeks on the bounce or something? That's all I think about, and I think it's possible, and this is Leeds. But the truth is there wasn't much time for them to score a second. But I think despite that being West Ham, and we've seen something similar with Fulham, we've seen something similar with Bournemouth in different ways and different results in the end as far as points, it does show that I think Farke and his coaching staff need to address some change in our tempo towards that end of the game and our tactics, because like you mentioned earlier, Evie, if that had have been a Man City, not that I expect we'd be 2-0 up really in those games, but if you were hanging on to a narrow, draw or win against a slightly better team, because hopefully we'll get some of those points this season, you need to be prepared to absolutely defend you out of your skin. Yeah. And I don't think they could have stopped that goal as soon as it left his foot, because it was a brilliant header and difficult for Perry to do anything with, and the defence, I think. So it's not necessarily a criticism there, but it's something I think they might want to be analysing and thinking about as far as our tempo and how we actually go about the game at that stage of the game.
I think we lack, obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewin hasn't scored since the Wolves game, but he's doing everything other than scoring right now. He's really leading that team well. He's giving us the option to go long. He's playing other players into it. His control when it comes to receiving the ball from long is brilliant. That's where I think that he differs from Bamford, as I think that he has a better control over long balls than Bamford ever really did. He's still got the same shooting ability that Bamford did. But it's frustrating for him, because he must feel annoyed that obviously when we go into defensive mode, he's basically just a spare part. Because even if we do get the ball up to him, he's got no support. He's got nothing. And then you're expecting a striker that isn't known for just pulling out worldies to carry the ball on his own halfway up a pitch and be composed enough to score. It just limits our options. And, as we saw with Bielsa, sometimes the best form of defense is attack. And if we just defend, it means that they have to get every single defensive action correct. Ampadu lost his man. Therefore he made a defensive error, and that one error led to a goal. Like you said, Danny, if we're playing against a better team than West Ham, we're going to be punished, and we're going to have our hearts broken in the 90th minute again. And you're bang on with that Farke and his team need to look at other tactics. Potentially they need to be saying, look, we've got other tactics, but we don't have players to implement said tactics, because Jack Harrison isn't it. And this isn't me letting my personal feelings of Jack Harrison come into it. It's just pointing out that he isn't a creative spark. He's a workhorse, and he will do what you ask him to. But he's not just going to hold on to the ball and pull out this magic trick out of his back pocket type of thing. You know, he's not Rafinha, he's not Okafor, you know, he's not Somerville. He's not any of those type of players. So yeah, I think it's frustrating, and I do feel for whichever striker it is when we go into full-on defensive mode, because it just means that the expectation and the pressure on that player up front, as soon as they put 1 foot wrong, well, the ball's back up the other end of the pitch and things, and we're back under the cosh. Obviously, we held on. We saw it out. I lost a lot of hair during those final few minutes. Nails were gone. Everything was gone. Heart rate, I thought that I was actually going to have some sort of like a manic episode or something with my heart. But we did it. And the relief, the big resemblance of ecstasy as we, you know, that final whistle went. Danny, did you allow yourself to be positive? Did you allow yourself to think that we can do this, or was it straight into thinking, no, I can't be too happy, it was only West Ham?
No, I do feel happy, I promise. I do feel happy feelings about football. I just hesitate to vocalise forward projections in a positive mindset. But no, I do think that, if you know me, I've been banging on point a game rather than the 10 game thing, but I'm cool with the 10 game thing as well. And we're well on track. So at the moment I go, you know, I think we might do this, but I'm not going to sit and go, we're definitely doing this. Look how awful they are. There's just one. Because if you look at it, you could say that really there's one space for relegation, because Wolves look awful, West Ham look awful. So, but I'm not saying anything. Okay. Because if I do, it'll be us in that last space.
Then you're going to be the cause of Leeds United getting relegated.
Exactly. Yeah. But I do feel positive, and I am very happy that sort of everything I've had in mind since before the season, we're beyond on track for. But we're coming in some hard fixtures, but because we got that win, I think we'll still be roughly aligned with where I want us to be.
Absolutely. Lucy, what was the ground like? You know, was everybody ecstatic or relieved or a bit of both? What was the feeling when that final was?
We all just went, thank goodness for that. Sort of thing. Me and my granddad, we always give each other a hug at the end, whether it's sort of win, lose or draw. I was like, blooming heck, we don't half make it difficult, do we, granddad? Sort of thing. I was like, but I don't know whether you've seen that meme, and it's like this old guy, and he's like, it says something like, Dave at 25, supporting Leeds is not stressful at all, and he's like an old man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so.
Right, well, Danny's just hinted at it then, that we've got some tricky fixtures coming up. So let's crack on with Brighton away, a place where we are notoriously fantastic at the Amex ground. I think we've won twice in the last, I don't know whether it's 30, 40 years. So we do not have a good history at the Amex. But Brighton look like a team that can be got at this season. And I'm not saying that we can't. We obviously can. But they do look like a different type of Brighton in terms of they don't have this wonder kid at the minute. They don't seem to have consistency. They seem to be able to pull results out of nowhere and then lose games that they really should be winning. You know, or they don't come into games until late on. I watched the Brighton Man U game the other day, and they didn't really come into it until they they were losing quite dramatically right near the end, and then it looked like they could potentially get a draw out of it in added time, and I was really rooting for them. But yeah, I mean, Rutter doing Rutter things as well. It did make me miss him because he just doesn't run like a normal person. His legs and arms just go in different directions as if they're not connected to his body. Lucy, are you feeling positive after obviously me just saying we don't have a good record there, or what's your feelings? And let's do a score prediction all in one.
I feel like if we continue to sort of outwork our opponents, I think I saw something earlier, and it was like they. Let me double check before I say it here.
No problem. We've got White Swan saying, I'd fancy our chances at home, but away I'll be pleased for a draw. I think that echoes a lot of what I think as well.
So that was it. Brighton have conceded the most successful take-ons in the Premier League this season. Tackle success rate of 43.8%. So I think they are gettable. Definitely gettable. It's whether we can break that curse.
So what's your score prediction?
I'm going to be in Italy at the time, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 win.
Oh,
Lucy's going to be happy in Italy, not sad.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Yes, let's be happy with the Italians. Danny, I mean, I know you're not going to predict a win, but what are your feelings on the game?
A fun fact, I actually once did a uni exam at the Amex Stadium because I went to university at Sussex, which is next door pretty much. So I have a bit of a connection with Brighton that way. So I'm going to project that we can win 1-0. And if we don't win, I'm not projecting another win all season.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm not doing it.
No, what if we get a draw? Like, what if it's a late draw that feels like a win?
I'll project draws going forward.
Okay.
I think it's for the best because it'll clearly be my fault.
Obviously. How dare you predict a win? I think that it will be a draw. Personally, I think I'm going 1-1, just because of superstition, the history, the fact that it's Rutter, and because Rutter is so unpredictable, he's a lot more difficult to mark out of a game than Somerville is, because I don't even think Rutter knows what he's doing half of the time. I think his instincts just kick in, and he's like some kind of like Bambi on ice, on acid or something. You know, he just doesn't quite know what he's doing, and sometimes it pays off, and sometimes it doesn't. So, yeah. What kind of reception do we think that Rutter's going to get? I know obviously it's away, so it's a much smaller section, but the away fans are often just as loud as the entire of Elland Road. You know, we have an amazing away fan base. Lucy, do you think Rutter's going to get the same reaction as Somerville did, or do you think there's a lot more love towards Rutter?
Yeah, I feel like we all sort of took to Rutter straight away. Like you say, he's a bit like Bambi on ice, and I can't tell you how many times I've sort of shouted, like, will you just like open your eyes? I think just his cheeky personality. I still love him now, I'm not going to lie. I watched a little video earlier, and one of his race horses is named after Brighton and Leeds, so he's called it Briley. And I just thought, you're just such a cute human.
Yeah. I loved when he was he playing FIFA or something, and a Man U fan asked if he would come to Man U, and he was like, do you not know that I played for Leeds? Like, no. And I'm like, oh, come home, please, come home. All is forgiven. Danny, do you think that he'll get a good reception, or do you think that once you're gone type of thing?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's much ill feeling towards Rutter from fans.
No,
I like to think that even when it makes no sense, it makes sense. There's some logical reason behind it, even if I don't agree with it. Like, I don't necessarily agree with the Somerville thing I said earlier, but I try and make sense of it, and I don't think he did anything other than leave. which I don't know if you can blame him, really.
No, I think that...
I try and pretend it's a team I don't support, and I go, would I leave? Probably. It's only Leeds that I'd feel that no towards.
Yeah, and I think that as well, you've got to... You don't know what players are told in terms of you need to go because we're going to be up whatnot without a paddle if you don't leave type of thing. So, yeah, I personally would never... I mean, it would take a lot for me to boo any player anyway, but I love Rutter. I've got really good memories of Rutter. And the only thing that I probably am sad about is the fact that if we think Ampadu was wild on that bus, Rutter would have been another level. Rutter would have fallen off. I was going to say, Rutter
would have been useless this season anyway. Yeah.
So yeah, I've started a few messages now. I started them ages ago, so let's see if I can remember what they're all actually for. Our away form needs to improve. Yes, well, that's kind of what we've just been saying. Obviously, we're away from home, well, for the next few games, aren't we? So that does need to improve. But Brighton is maybe the team where you can kind of be like, it can improve, but Brighton just are a bit of a weird club for us. I've put Mr. Whitesnake, there is no team who is either loved or disliked the way that Leeds United are. Absolutely. And that is another reason, another thing that makes us special. Let's have a look. If you ask me who I remember most out of those two, I'm presuming meaning Rutter and Somerville. Yeah, I think we're all a lot more Rutter based. So yes, I would. And that is probably the only time that I would ever either scum or that other team that we don't like, that Turkey team that I'm not going to say the name of. But yeah, those are the only ones that I would ever do anything for. Right, well, we've got score predictions: 1-0, 2-1, and I'm going 1-1. And I am going to go Rutter to score, just because I just think he would. And I wouldn't even be that cross if I'm being honest, because I'd just be like, oh yeah, now you get your shooting boots on. How many times did you miss sitter after sitter, and now you score against us? Thanks very much. Right, well, we'll leave it there. Thank you to everybody who was watching this evening, commented, and bared with us while we were a little bit delayed because of Joe. Not that I'm calling him out at all for it. Right, well, we'll leave it there. Do either one of you two have anything else that I've not brought up that you want to chat about?
Don't think so.
Don't think so.
That's fine. We've covered everything. God, we're getting good at this, ladies. Right, we will see you all next week. Adios.
Bye-bye.